Fourth grade, I'm going to read you a story called Game Changer, John McClellan and the Secret Game. John McCoy is the author, illustrated by Randy Duberk. Who are you? What are you? Why are you here on this earth? Where are you going? Coach McClellan's 4 questions for his players. On Sunday, March 12, 1944, at 11 in the morning, when most people were still at church, a group of basketball players who thought they were the best in the state of North Carolina piled into 2 cars. The members of Duke University Medical School team knew they were playing a game, but didn't all know where they were going or who their opponent would be. The drivers wound around the deserted streets of downtown Durham to make sure nobody was following them. Before they crossed over to the other side of town, the players covered their windows with quilts so they wouldn't be seen. When the cars stopped, the players pulled their coats over their heads and walked through the women's locker room into the gymnasium. Before them stood a timekeeper, 2 referees, and the starting 5 of the North Carolina College of Negroes. The Eagles, under their young coach, John McClellan, had 19 wins and 1 loss, but because of segregation, they were prohibited from playing against white teams. On this day, the Eagles were going to break the prohibition. Coach McClellan, who'd learned basketball from James Naismith, the game's founder, stood to the side with his wife, Alice, and their 2 children. McClellan believed basketball could change people's prejudices, and he wanted his children present to see just a change. The 2 teams warmed up at opposite ends of the locked gymnasium. Players glanced down to size one another up and then turned away. Eventually, there was nothing left to do but play ball. The game started slowly, with drop passes and shots clanging off the rim. Players on both sides, some of whom had never been this close to a person of different color, were hesitant to touch or bump into one another. The Duke team of Jack Burgess, Dick Simmons, Homer Cyber, Dave Hubble, and Dick Thistlewaite took the lead. They had all played college ball and were strong and experienced. They ran their 3-man weave, executed give and goes, and launched set shots. This was the game of most people knew it, basketball of the present. The young Eagles gradually settled into their game, though. They applied the pressure defense they'd learned from Coach McClellan. George Parks and Henry Big Dog Thomas grabbed rebounds and fired outlet passes to Aubrey Stanley, Floyd Cootie Brown, and James Boogie Woogie Hardy. They raced up and down the floor in McClellan's innovative fast break style that emphasized attacking the basket. This was basketball the white players had never seen. The Duke players breathed hard and grabbed their shorts. They'd never imagined the game at this pace. As they grasped for breath, the Eagles, who were in excellent condition because of McClellan's drills, made basket after basket. The Duke players were witnessing something new, basketball of the future. When the game ended, the players were shocked by the score. The Duke team had scored 44 points, which was near its average. The Eagles, though, had 88, doubling Duke's score. It was a stunning display of basketball. There was no question about which team was the best. They beat us real good. They beat us real sharp, Jack Burgess said. What happened next was even more remarkable. The 2 teams played another game, but this time black and white players played together to even up the sides in the game of shirts and skins. Meanwhile, word spread around the campus that something was happening at the gym. Students climbed up on the window ledges and pressed against the glass to see the sight they'd never seen. 19 years before Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech, and 3 years before Jackie Robinson broke the color line in Major League Baseball, black players and white players worked together as teammates in an illegal game in segregated North Carolina. George Parks of the Eagles said later that this game was just God's children horsing around with a basketball. Afterward, the Eagles players invited the Duke players back to their dormitory. They sat around and talked about the game and everything else, the way basketball players do. When it was time for the Duke players to go, everybody agreed on a plan. They pledged they would keep the game secret to protect one another from Coach McClendon, who would have been fired for much worse if people found out. A reporter for the Carolina Times, Durham's black weekly newspaper, heard about the game, but he agreed not to publish the story at the McClendon's request since the Ku Klux Klan was active and considered race mixing a crime punishable by death. Jack Burgess did write a letter to his family in Montana. We played basketball against a Negro college team. We sure had fun, and I especially had a good time, for most of the fellows playing with me were Southerners. And then the evening was over, and most of them had changed their views quite a lot. These players had seen the future, but it would take time for everybody else to see it. 22 years later, in 1966, Texas Western started 5 black players against a heavily favored all-white team from Kentucky for the national championship. Texas Western triumphed, and when they did, news spread around the country. The era of segregated big-time college basketball was ending. Years later, John McClendon, who was introduced into the Basketball Hall of Fame for pioneering coaching career, said, "I just wanted to further the idea that we all played basketball, and that we all played it well, and that we should be playing it together." Today, people don't think twice about players of different skin colors competing with one another on the court, but it wasn't always that way. It took courage to make their future a reality. Coach John McClendon and those brave players who rose to the challenge in the secret game were years ahead of their time. Let's see if there's a timeline over here. Selected bibliography and an author's name.